2 preseason games are in the books, and we're starting to get glimpses of what the 2025 Seahawks will look like. And today, we're joined by the Athletic's Michael-Shawn Dugar to not only break down what we've seen on the field, but talk about his incredible work on the book Seahawks fans have been craving for a decade. It's called The Franchise, a curated history of the Legion of Boom era. Let's light 'em up.
I'm Jackson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts.
Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jackson Bevins, and along with my auspicious producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. I'm telling y'all right now, today is going to be one of my favorite conversations we've ever had on this show. But first, cigars and whiskey. Cigar Thoughts is proud to be partnered with Seattle Cigar Concierge and Balvenie Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Seattle Cigar Concierge and I have teamed up to release 2 versions of high-quality Cigar Thoughts stogies, both of which you can purchase by following the link on the show page or visiting cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Mike and I love doing the show, and there are 2 ways y'all listening and watching can help support it so that we can keep the episodes coming. One is by purchasing the cigars, and the other is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts, where you can watch full episodes as well as the funny and insightful clips that Mike puts together. Give a thumbs up to the stuff you like, and let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts. Well, we're 2/3 of the way through the preseason games, and honestly, even though you can only get so much from watching essentially exhibition football, I think we are really starting to see what some of the changes with this version of the Seahawks are going to look like. And I cannot wait to talk more about the game against the Chiefs. And the person that is here to do it with us is one of my absolute favorites. And I have had this week circled for a long time because he is not only an excellent beat reporter for the Seahawks, he is not only an incredible hang in person, but he is the perfect person to write the book that I have been waiting 15 years to be written. He is Michael-Shawn Dugar. He is the author of The Franchise, his new book that he was kind enough to send me an advance copy of a couple months ago. It's incredible. We're going to talk with him a little bit about that. Michael-Shawn Dugar. Mike, how are you doing, brother?
I'm on the moon, man. I just feel outstanding that people have the book. You know, you have the advanced copy, like you mentioned, but now everyone can have a chance to get it, and that just feels amazing because you're not alone in the anticipation for something to document this moment in Seattle sports history. You know, it feels like people have been joking for a long time. I can't wait till the 30-30 comes out, or the book on this team is gonna be nuts. Yeah. You know, I heard that enough. It's like, wow, I just write the damn thing. So, you know, I'm really excited that I was able to write the damn thing, and that people have digested it, and the early feedback has been really positive. So yeah, I couldn't feel better right now.
This is your first book. Mm-hmm. I mean, the leap that it takes to go from covering a sport to truly documenting an era, and I mean, honestly, an era of Seattle sports that maybe united this region more than anything politically or environmentally ever has. And what was so cool about it to me, what really stood out, I mean, there's a lot that stood out. Storytelling is remarkable, but you really got a sense of how relational that team was, both the ups and the downs, how truly interpersonal the building and eventual fracturing of the LOB era of Seattle Seahawks football was. But this was your first book. And I'm sure you had some expectations for what the process of writing it was going to look like and what those interactions with players and coaches was going to be like. But were there any big surprises?
Yeah, there were quite a few. I think The main one was the depth of the relationships, like you mentioned. Because I knew everybody talks about, this is my brother, I love this guy, yada yada. You hear that every year. This is the time of year actually when we hear it the most. Like you hear guys say this is the tightest team I've ever been on. Which it may be true. Not even to say those guys are lying, but just the depths of everyone's story and how ultimately they were all a version of the same story. The characters that I chose to focus on, like what motivates Doug, even though he's this kid from Pensacola, Florida, is very similar to what motivates a kid from Compton, and is similar to what motivates a kid from Virginia. Two kids from Virginia and Russ and Cam's case, and what motivates a guy from Orange, Texas. And they all took these different paths to meeting one another and getting to Seattle. And you may think, like, on the surface, okay, well, Doug was wired a little different than Cam, was wired a little different than Earl, who's wired a little different than Bobby. And they all are different, like, on the surface. But really deep down, they all had the same thing that made them tick. And they all value relationships and loyalty and honesty. They really valued all that together. And I knew that, but learning it in depth and really what made those guys tick was remarkable, really. I felt honored, in a lot of those cases. And I think that the depths, on a negative note, I guess I should say, the depths to which guys didn't like Russell, like I knew that, but I came in here in 2017. My first year is when the Seth Wickersham article in ESPN kind of came out about how guys didn't like Russ, and he was making guys sign NDAs to hang out with him in the Mariners suites and stuff like that. And I was pretty young on the beat. I think that was my first month on the beat. And I'm like, what do you mean? There's no way, I also didn't know how the journalism game worked at the time. Now I really, really know how an article like that comes to be. Is because somebody wants it to come to be. But I just kind of thought, oh man, that can't be true. He's Russ, right? I'm from Seattle. I'm like, what do you mean guys don't love the only Super Bowl winning quarterback in the franchise? And then I get into deep dive and I'm like, oh, that's why. And that's how the house burned down. I really get it. And I guess I say last thing on the surprises is that I would have thought that it was just because of the Super Bowl. Like I was, okay, he threw a pick and lost the Super Bowl. Okay, I can get that. And then you realize from reading the book and the research that I did, it's like, no, it's almost like any divorce, where it's not just the one thing. It's not just the cheating, I guess, what ends a relationship. Yeah, it's it's the little things. It's you stop noticing that I got my hair done, or asking me how my day went, or whatever, just the little thing. So that, then when I catch you doing the big thing, now it's just over. I didn't realize the depths of that, and it was just little small moments that led to the big thing kind of bringing it down. So that was really fascinating to learn and to hear those guys admit it, either to me on the record, off the record, or like in podcast interviews, which I get a decent amount of the information from the pieces all together. So that was really fascinating for me to learn as someone who was kind of there towards the end, but kind of got to relive it with a different eye, different ear as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that's what you pointed out, and the Russ example is something that behind the scenes you and I have been talking about long time before it came to the surface. Just like, okay, there's you were aware, you've always had your fingers on the heartbeat of this team from very early in your career, and to see all of that come together in such an unfiltered way. I mean, this is why Hard Knocks is so popular. This is why everyone likes the mic'd up stuff. It's like we're obsessed with this game, and these players are larger than life, and we want the access, and it's so hard in the modern era to get that in an unfiltered way, and you did that page after page. I mean, the thing that stood out to me reading this book is it's like you were not stretching 4 stories into 400 pages. Like it's like every 2 pages there's a new story going on, and you managed to weave it all together. And what you were talking about at the top with how everyone got to the same place and shared this mentality. I'm one of those guys that I don't think this is a unique take, but in every gangster movie, whether it be Mafia or Off the Streets or whatever, the most compelling part of the story is the way up, is the building of the empire, right? And then you ultimately see what life is like at the top, and then you see the crash, and it's all compelling, but the buildup is what's so great about it. And it's so funny because while I was reading the book, I also finally got around to watching the movie Blow. And it was like, I'm seeing so many parallels here between Johnny Depp's main character, George, and these Seahawks. But there's one part that I had to dog ear the page, and then you just dovetailed into it perfectly with what you said. And it was, about a third of the way into the book, you're talking with Mo Kelly, Vice President, Player Affairs, and he ends the chapter with this quote that I love. He said, "The mindset of all these guys is what pushed us over the top. We could talk about the talent, we could talk about the alpha males and all this stuff, but the mentality is what pushed us over the top. We had the perfect storm. We got the right guys at the right time with the right mentality that you just don't see too often anymore." And that, I was like, damn, that's like the Player Affairs guy. Mm-hmm. Nailing it. And for you to get that out of him, I mean, I just love that, because that felt like an inflection point in my life as a sports fan. Is holy shit, this is more than just a team that can win a playoff game. Like this might be something really special.
Yeah, and what was special about them was how they were wired. Like Mo Kelly, people who listen to your show probably know who Mo Kelly is, but people who may not, Mo Kelly is like the keeper of all the secrets. He is the liaison between the players and the front office. Mo Kelly's office is a sanctuary for players. It's right by the locker room. They can go in there, they can vent about whatever, playing time, what's going on with their wives or their kids, or whether they hate the quarterback, or just anything. Mm-hmm. And that it's never going to leave Mo's office unless it's something harmful, like, hey, I'm about to go kill somebody, then he's like, I gotta go tell Pete Carroll. But for the most part, you could vent to Mo, he could understand, and it wasn't going to get to management, which is very important. Mo is like the therapist, or the barbershop is what a lot of people called Mo's office. And he's very important. That's why I love when the Seahawks agreed to give me the interview with Mo. I was like, oh man, my book's going to be great. I can just feel it, because Mo, he does a good job of, and you as someone who read the book, this, he can give those stories without burning anybody.
That's right.
Like sometimes he couldn't tell me who said what, but he gave enough to illustrate the point. I think how teammates feel about Russ is the greatest example, I would say. EK, their equipment guy, who's been around since the early 90s, I think is the same way. Mo also precedes Pete too, so that helps. He's got the background there. And yeah, one of the conversations that always stuck out to me that I put in the book was when Luke Wilson, I believe in 2019, he looks out at the locker room. He says, "How many guys you think in here would just punch someone in the face?" And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe two or three, maybe. I ran down. I'm like, maybe Jay Reed. I'm going through the team. And he was like, all right, cool, I agree. He agreed with whatever number I gave. And he was just like, our Super Bowl team had 12. We were just, and with being willing to punch someone in the face is not the only barometer of toughness, but right. It is something that everyone understands. You usually are wired a certain way if you're just going to punch someone in the face. So to channel all that was crazy.
And I think to your point, it's one thing to feel that about your teammates, but opponents know it. If they're about to play a team with a dozen guys that will punch you in the face, yeah, they know that, right? There is a difference. And I always think about early LOB when ESPN had done an interview with the four of them, and they were just kind of coming up. They were like this hot new band, and they were talking. Richard's he's just yapping, and he got asked about Cam, and he's like, "We got a pack of dogs here, and dogs get in fights, but Cam is a lion, and when the lion shows up, the dogs get out of the way." And I was like, if he knows that, opponents know that. And right. That, even if you're not actually getting in fights, the fact that there is a fight ender on the other side affects how you approach that game, in a game where the smallest edges make the difference. And it was just such a special thing to see.
Yeah, and Cam's the first chapter I started working on. Mm-hmm. Not the first one I finished, but there was something about Cam when I did my initial, all right, how do I start this damn thing? Because I'd never written a book, obviously. So I'm like, where do I even start? And it just felt very appropriate to start with Cam. And I think he's the perfect example of what I wanted the book to be. And like, you see him as a person, as a player, actually, and like, wow, look at this really violent guy. Like, he's really, really violent. That was his calling card, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, how did he get there? Why is he that way? Because when I covered Cam in 2017, you know, that's when he got his extension, and he was a veteran at that point. And I was just like, man, this looks like the nicest guy in the world. Right. What does he have to do to put on, what happens when he puts that visor on? What is in there? And I remember he said he goes to this dark place, and that always stuck out with me in 2017. I was like, man, the duality of being this nice guy with this $1 million smile and just being a caring dude according to teammates and coaches. And then when you put on this visor, whatever happens between warm-ups and you're rolling out with the hammer celebration, I just needed to understand that. And while Cam's not one of the people I spoke with directly for the book, he's actually the only person that shut me down in person, which hurt. I was like, usually you get somebody in person, they agree. They're like, I'll do it. Even if they back out later, he was just like, yeah, nah. And in the nicest way, too.
Sure, I'm sure.
But learning about how that guy, how he was raised in Virginia, in college and everything, it just added so much context. So when you see him laying folks out like that, it's not just because, Cam's a meathead, just violent seeker. He was doing it out of love and out of like this desire to be great for the people that he came up with, in particular his mother, who sacrificed a lot to raise him and his siblings. Like, that was everything. Like, seeing Cam's story, I loved it that I got a chance to start there and that it ended up making the most sense. I can't remember the rest of the order of who I worked on, but like Cam, man, he really set the tone there. And it's just, I was like, he's one of the reasons I wanted to shorten the scope of the book instead of writing a history, which you look at some of these other Triumph books in the franchise series, they're about just the blanket history of the team, the franchise, insert team here. No, you can't do that to Cam Chancellor. He can't just be 3 pages in the history of the Seahawks. Like, someone else can do that, but I will not do that. Cam needs depth. And if you give depth on Cam, you just naturally have to do it for everyone else. And it makes the book, in my mind, so much stronger, because like you said, these guys were characters. They were personalities, and they made you feel something. And if you read about them, I feel like I have to do it in a way that makes the reader feel something as well.
I know. I'm tempted to just spend 2 hours going through every story in this book, but I want the people to go out and buy this thing. But I am going to ask you one more question about it before you tell people where they can get the book. I think that Pete Carroll's legacy ultimately is a little more complicated than we'd like it to be, because I think, this is something you and I have talked about before. He was not only transformative for the team, obviously. His book, man, Win Forever, was transformative for me as a person. Like, it adjusted the way that I approach my business, the way I approach being a man, the way I approach being a husband, and a professional, and all of these things. Like, I hand wrote out his version of the Pyramid of Success, like, so, not printed, hand wrote it so that it was carved in my mind, framed it, put it on my wall when I was poor as hell and going deeper into debt every month, as my wife and I were trying to build a business, and it was like a mantra. But, things don't always end on the terms you want them to. As you were going back and talking with these players about, and coaches and people involved with the team about Pete coming in, because that predates your time with the team, what was the sense you got about the effect that Pete Carroll had?
The first thing was people thought Pete was nuts. Even in the building, they were just like, yo, because he wasn't compared to Jim Mora as much as he was compared to Holmgren for a lot of people, because everyone kind of acknowledged, like, okay, this Mora thing, just that year didn't happen. Right, basically, right. They were like, okay, how is he compared to Holmgren? And they were just so different. Pete kind of came in with these player coach things that now are commonplace, whether it's the bag drill or the basketball hoop or the music.
That's right.
Like, all of those things in 2010 were like, dog, this ain't college. That's how a lot of players and people felt. And just Pete's kind of quirkiness. If you've ever talked to Pete, he talks 1,000 words a minute. He doesn't make a lot of eye contact with you. He's just kind of going a lot of the time. And it would just, I remember, I think it was Ike or Steve Rabel, one of the two members, telling their spouse after they first kind of got interacted with Pete, like, yo, this guy's, something's up with this guy. Hey, he's too good to be true. I think it was EK. It was like, he's too good to be true.
Oh, it was like a good thing, right? They were so impressed that they're like, this can't be real.
Yeah, it's like, this guy must be just putting on. Like, there's no way he's this optimistic, this like player friendly, and this is going to work. And eventually, obviously, it did work. And it wasn't, I think what really helped is all those transactions that he and John made off a rip, where it wasn't like, okay, we're the good parent. No, man, we'll get you up out of here too if you're not with the program. Even if you're a vet,
people forget that those first 2 years, they set an NFL record in back-to-back seasons for most roster transactions. And to us, it's just a little press release, right? Like, oh, so-and-so was cut, so-and-so was signed, whatever. Those are hard conversations to have. Those are life-altering conversations to have. And they were having 100 of them per season.
Oh yeah, they were getting guys out of here who weren't down with the get down, and that was very important as well. That was the sense early on with Pete, and then I think that they realized, the Seahawks did, the players, the coaches, the front office, we have to build this thing in Pete's image, because like you said, he had already written a book. We know how to build it in his image. It's right here. Here's the rules. Be on time, be accountable, all the stuff, the pyramid of success, like you mentioned, how they're supposed to practice, everything was already written. So it's like, we have to build our team that way because it'll work. And when it started working, then it was just, okay, let's just let Pete do whatever the hell he needs to do to get this thing to work. And that had its pros and its cons. Pete he built it in his image, and there was just no way it was going to end well. There's not even a guarantee that it was going to have success, because these guys were all these habitual line steppers. And if you do that, eventually they're going to cross that line.
That's right.
Which they did, and Pete had to bring them back a few times. And then the way Pete kind of instructed them to treat Russell relative to the rest of them was this hypocrisy that guys didn't sit well with so many guys. Like Pete, this is really a book about the Pete era. We have to call it the Legion of Boom era for marketing purposes, but it's really the Pete era, because it's built in his image, his environment, his culture is what created it. He basically set the foundation. The players acted it out, carried it, believed in it, and their belief in it is what brought it back down. And that's what really gave it the story, kind of this arc to where it just comes crashing down. You would rather that not be the case, where you losing a Super Bowl at the 1 yard line is why it comes crashing down. But it was always going to crash because of kind of how they structured it and how strongly they believed in all of the messaging that Pete was giving them.
It is, in my life as a sports fan, it is the most affirming example of manifestation, because whether y'all listening and watching this believe in manifesting your own reality, or you think it's just woo-woo, whatever, trust me, these guys in the NFL believe in that. And they need their leaders to believe in that, because they are putting their livelihoods on the line every single day. They could be injured, cut, freaking paralyzed at any given moment. Like, they have to have a level of self-belief that is rare to find. And if you don't believe that from your leaders, whether it be the coach, the quarterback, the team captain, whomever, those fissures are going to spread through that locker room, because these guys need to have that. And Pete's ability to create that sense of manifestation, and some of the meetings he would have calling players up to talk about times where their manifestation turned into reality, right? It's not just the coach saying it, right? It's him bringing up Lawyer Malloy in the first season and having him tell the whole team a story of when he was in the zone at some point as an athlete. And I think if I remember the story correctly, it wasn't even football. He talked about throwing a no-hitter in high school. And like that kind of stuff, it resonates so much. And, I keep saying this is the last thing I'm going to ask you about the book, but one more. Because it's such a triumph of a project, man. Like you fucking crushed it. To me, the most validating instance of the entire story of the franchise of the Seahawks is the 7-9 team winning on the Beastquake run. Was that what tipped the scales to make this team believe, holy shit, we were 4-12 last year. We got this goofball coach. I think, to me, that feels like a tipping point.
I think externally that was for sure. I think internally, there were a few schematic things that they were doing that they needed certain people to make them come to life, and there were pieces of it. Marshawn was probably step one on offense. There was like, okay, this is our identity. It's this guy. Like he's going to be the engine. And I think the acquisitions of BB and Sherm in the same offseason really gave them life defensively, in a schematic sense too, and just attitude. The way BB, I spend a lot of time on BB, perhaps more than someone who is not too familiar with the Seahawks would think you would, if you're writing a book about that era. But then you read the book and you're like, okay, he was very essential to the foundation and the culture. He didn't even play in the Super Bowl they won, and he's part of the reason they lost the other one. But he's such an integral part of who they were on defense, for one, because he's actually acquired before Sherman. And then his attitude, his body slamming of, I think, Gary Jennings, and the way I think body slammed Terrell Owens in camp. Like he was the guy.
He was the prototype. There were other people that came in with more talent that were in that same vein. But before Brandon Browner, there weren't Richard Shermans and Earl Thomases and these ass kickers, right? These punchy in the face guys. He was the first one. They built off of that.
Yeah, and so he was very important, and like I said, I spend a lot of time on him. I kind of treat him like an original member of the Legion of Boom that he is. He was part of the name, the creation of the name. He helped create the parts of the "Who's Got My Back." Like he helped create that as well. So BB, I think, is very important, and his story speaks to the brotherhood. He loved Sherm. Like he loved Cam, like he loved those guys. Like when he even went to prison, he's talking to those guys. Whether it's however those guys get phones in jail now, he was making it happen. Talking to those guys because that was love, So I think that the acquisition of BB and Sherm in the same offseason was very important. And then once they finally put it together, I think put them on the field together in that Bengals game in 2011 was another like pivot point. Even though they lost that game, it was just like, oh, we're here now. Like all of us together. That was their first start.
That was the game that made me sit up and take notice when Richard Sherman, late round draft pick rookie, called AJ Brown a bunch of noise and bad routes. And I was like,
routes, man. And a game they lost.
Oh shit. Y'all just lost. AJ Brown is like top 5 receiver minted in that era. And like I said, just yapping, man. Like that's tone setting.
Yeah, and that there was something special, I think, about all of those guys playing together at that time because of their ages, where they came in.
They hadn't really got paid yet either.
Yeah, nobody got paid. No one made any money except for like Earl, because he was a first round pick, right. pre the current CBA. So he made some money, but they weren't making any money. They were all young. They were all single, I believe. I think Earl was with Nina at the time, but basically all single ish. No one married, no one have kids. They're all kind of just, if they don't have anything to do on a Saturday night, they're going out together. They're playing ball at the local LA Fitness. They're all at the same point in their lives, which I thought was very important. It's different.
Well, and we've been there, right? We've been there. Like it's like these guys feel impossible to relate to until you tell a story like that.
Yeah, like I thought that was very important. And someone I talked to when I first had this idea for the book, before it ever got greenlit, was Marcus Trufant, who's quoted in the book as well. And it just would have been different if he was in the Legion of Boom. He was from a different era of Seahawks football. He was older. He might have had kids at the time. I can't remember, but it would have just been different. There was something very unique and special about BB, even though he was older than Sherman, Cam, and Earl. Even though he was older, something about them all being in a very similar place in their life, of the same age, kind of with the same motivation of like, okay, let's go kick ass together. I thought that was very, very valuable. And even when they brought Jay Lane and Maxie in, Byron Maxwell, it all just kind of fit together. I think that the acquisition of Marshawn and the acquisition of BB and Sherm just really brought it together. Because when they have BB, Doug obviously that year as well in 2011, when they have all those guys in that back half of that 2011 season, they had a top 10 defense.
Yep.
A top 10 defense that year. A bunch of guys made the Pro Bowl that year. I think they paid for Sherm to come out with them to the Pro Bowl, even though he didn't make it. Like, it was just this brotherhood. That's when it formed. And I think there's something just special about and ironic I guess that was the only game I've been to as a Seahawks fan. That Bengals game in 2011. I think my dad hooked me up with tickets and with my friend named Jordan. And that game, that's why that game will never, I'll never forget it. That was my first and only game as a fan going. And what do you know, it was I would say one of the most important games in the history of the franchise.
Which, like, a middle of the season loss on a team that
and they got blown out. I want to say
no one was really like believing in at that point, right? Like, okay, it's cute that you won the division at 7-9. It's cute that you pulled off an upset, but like, okay, you know, water's going to find its level. You're starting a bunch of late round draft picks, you know, and it's just, I think for the athletes and the former athletes listening to this, when you think about the most fun you ever had on a team, sure, you were good, right? That's a component, right? You kick some ass, but it was the stuff away from it, right? Like I was fortunate to have an athletic career that took me through college, and my favorite time was a summer league baseball team, and we whipped some ass that year. And it's so funny because like half of them are in my fantasy football league. We just had our draft out in Coeur d'Alene this past weekend. And we were out at the bars late one night talking. And we just started talking 20 years later about that summer. And it wasn't about the games like it was. We rehashed some stories, but it was about the other stuff. It was about, you know, friggin' playing dibble dabble in the pool where you're trying to find a toothpick and everyone's jumping on each other, wrestling for a toothpick under the water, and it's hanging out in each other's rooms, and it's just doing all the other stuff so that when you show up on the field, everyone is free, everyone is loose, and everyone knows that you got their back. You're getting dinners together, you're hanging out, you're doing all of these things, chasing girls together, all of that stuff. And it's so easy, I think, to forget that this happens at the pro level too. And it's maybe even more important at the pro level, you know, and you just did such a special job of telling all the story. Look, I got to stop myself because I'm just going to have you talk about the entire book on this show. So why don't you tell everybody where they can get the franchise, A Curated History of the Legion of Boom Era?
The franchise, Seattle Seahawks, A Curated History of the Legion of Boom Era, is available everywhere books are sold. That's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Triumph Books, which is the publisher. Shout out to them. You can get them from your local bookstore, definitely in the Seattle area. I'll be signing books at Elliott Bay Book Company on August 25th at 7 p.m. If you're at a Seahawks game, whether on the road or at home, I will have books on me. Obviously, a more limited supply on the road, but you can get one from me. You can DM me. I'll come meet you at halftime.
You're going to have a trench coat. You're going to open the trench coat. There's going to be like 20 copies.
I'm going to have the books on me. I'm going to have a Sharpie on me or a pen everywhere I go. Come meet me at halftime. If you're at a Seahawks game, shoot me a DM. Meet me at the Tunnel Club at halftime. I'll come sign your book. Like, you can get them everywhere. Some people have asked me, there's no one place to order from where I make more money to my knowledge. So just buy it from wherever. Doesn't matter. But make sure you leave a review. That's the key part. Leave a review online somewhere. That's how you can help me. We are available now. I'm very excited. I'm so happy that you got a chance to read it, that people are getting a chance to read it. Because those stories are what made it great. There's a lot of great defenses in the NFL. We'll never see another Legion of Boom. I don't care how talented a team is. They were just a different. Schematically, they were different. Body type wise,
I don't think
the
culture. I don't think the modern sports media culture will allow for that to ever happen again. I think that was the last of it. And you got a chance. You didn't get a chance. You created your own opportunity to tell this story. You nailed it. Guys, buy the book. I mean, I will say doing this show and writing the articles has given me some opportunities that I never thought were possible as a fan, given me some access to some really amazing people. And Mike, I got to say, man, you were at the top of that list. And when you sent me that DM asking for the address so you could send me and Mike Barwin the advanced copies, it felt like I haven't made it, right? I haven't done shit, but it felt like an I've made it moment. You thought enough of us in this show to give us a sneak peek. And like I told you before we got on the air, I've withheld my review of it and my feedback to you because I wanted to do that with you on this show. And I'm so grateful that you did that. Now, there's also real football getting played right now. Mm-hmm. And this is not the Legion of Boom era. Whatever it ends up looking like, this is a very different team. It is a very different culture. Real quick, before we get into some of the things that happened in the latest preseason game against the Chiefs, after having spent so much time documenting the Pete Carroll era, and now your day-to-day is in real time documenting the Mike Macdonald era, what are some of the biggest changes in that building?
Yeah, I think it's just made in somebody else's image now, for better or worse. Like, I think it'll work, but it could not, but I think that's the main thing. And that's why initially I didn't like how John Schneider was trying to sell the transition. It was like, oh, we'll just keep our culture and then just find a new head coach. And I always thought that was just bullshit. Like, John, I would tell him to his face, you can't do that. The culture of the Seahawks left when Pete got fired. Like, for better or worse, he was the culture, and all the players will tell you that. John had a big say in that as well, but John just doesn't interact with the players in a way that is as familial, I guess, as Pete. Like, John will be there when you sign your contract and when you're negotiating it, and he'll fire you, as well. But it's not the same as like Pete in the love that he had for these guys and the interactions and all the conversations and everything. Like, Pete's the type of guy crying with you in the locker room when you blow your ACL, right? It's just something that GMs don't always get a chance to do. So it's just a different relationship. So I say that to say the culture left, and that's okay. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. But it's Mike's job to build a new culture. It's not Mike's job to pick up some baton that John is handing to him. And I thought that was very important, and I think I only have that perspective because I was writing the book at the time they hired Mike. Mm-hmm. And just seeing it in real time, I'm just like, yo, this culture stuff that you're trying to maintain. And John, in his intro, his first press conference after Pete got fired, he's like, yeah, our culture, EK and Stu, our chef. And I'm like, okay, no slight to those guys. They are important. Mo Kelly is important. EK is important. Pete was the culture, though, right? Yep. Like, that's important. And I say that not to just dwell on Pete and how much I love the guy. It's more so I just recognize now how a franchise has to be built. It has to be built in the head coach's image. You can't try to hang on to the past, try to make a transition of, oh, he's like this bridge between our past and our present. I think the Patriots are an interesting case study in that currently as well. They've already flamed out trying to hire a Belichick disciple, and they just chose another one. So we'll see how that goes up there. I don't think that'll work in that way. I think you kind of got to
I think the Belichick tree. Yeah, I think the Belichick tree is the biggest example of, if you don't have authenticity as a coach, locker room's going to sniff that out really, really quickly.
So right? Fast, like your first couple meetings fast.
That's right. And I think it's really important for us on the outside when we're formulating opinions about a team, about a coach, is that these guys know. These guys know. They're going to see through the bullshit. And, Belichick, arguably the greatest football coach of all time, his coaching tree sucks.
Bad. Those guys flame out bad.
Outside of Rabel, they've all pretty much sucked. Like, they've been good coordinators. And it's who they are
as people too, while they're bad. Like, people don't like the person that,
that's what I'm saying.
What's the guy's name that was the Lions? Matt Patricia?
Yeah.
Like, they don't like him. Like, you go look at Josh McDaniels, like, when he's a head coach, they just don't like some of these guys. It's their people.
And I think that a lot of people think that part of what made Belichick so successful was that he was an asshole, that he was a hard ass. He was all of these things that his coaching tree have tried to be and end up being hated by some of their players. I think Quandre is freaking hilarious talking about Matt Patricia, like, just on Main Street.
Great.
It's so funny. And like, these guys know. And what made Belichick good wasn't that he was an asshole. He just happened to be an asshole. What made him good was that his dad literally wrote the book on modern NFL defense, and then Bill Belichick perfected it and was so unforgiving about getting the details right. Mm-hmm. That's what worked. And Tom Brady. But that's what worked. And it's not that that was his personality, but it was authentic. right?
Yeah.
Bill Belichick was not impersonating anyone else. And I've always said one of my mantras in life is, I don't care what you are nearly as much as I care how much you own it. Whatever you are, own it, because authenticity is at a premium right now, with everything being zhuzhed up for clicks and for image and for marketing and all those things. It's a game everybody's got to play. And so when you have someone that's authentic, you do feel it. And I think you feel it right away these days. And Mike Macdonald feels authentic. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's aware of that, like the BS meter of the guys. And Pete was too. And I think that's something, one of the few things that they share, I think, is that like they've learned very early on, if I'm not me, they will call me out for it. And I think Pete, there's usually a player or two that they can view that through. And I think for Pete, it was guys like Marshawn and Sherm and Doug, where it was just like, if Pete was a BS artist, they would have called that out so fast, particularly Marshawn. And he would have done it in a way that galvanized everyone else to call out your bullshit as well. And I think that Mike Macdonald has those same type of guys. I think they're mainly on defense right now, which makes sense. But it's guys like Spoon. It's guys like Jay Reed.
I was going to ask.
You can't bullshit Spoon. You just can't. He's going to sniff it out. Jay Reed, too.
Crazy. He's so young. For him to be there already is nuts.
Yeah, like he'll sniff it out. He'll call you out. He calls out plays that don't work in walkthrough, or he'll say, hey coach, if we run it like that, this is going to be a problem for us. You know that, right? Like he'll say that in practice. Jay Reed, the same. Jay Reed's the guy who breaks down after they do their pregame warm up on the field as a team in uniform. Jay Reed is who breaks them down before they run back into the locker room that last time. Like there's certain guys who just have something about them who's like, yo, if you're up there performing, you're going to lose them. And once you lose those guys, you lose the team. And
That's right.
Pete recognized that, and Mike knows that as well. And Mike's himself, he's a lot more boring than Pete. I don't expect Mike Macdonald to have like Condoleezza Rice pull up at practice or NBA stars or
Will Ferrell's not going to go give you a 5-minute routine of practice.
He'll have some guests, but it's not the same. Pete was really running a 3-ring circus there with his meetings a lot of the time. Mike's a lot more straightforward. He's like very stern, doesn't smile a lot. I was getting my hair cut the other day, and my barber was like, is what's up with Mike Macdonald? Is he an asshole? No, I was playing flag football, and one of my teammates was like, is Mike Macdonald an asshole? I'm like, not really, but I see why you think that. Because if you don't interact with him on TV or see him never smiling on the sidelines, even when they score a touchdown, like he's the type of guy who, if you score a touchdown, he might give a little fist bump, but he's already in the ear making sure that they have all 11 guys on the field for the PAT. That's just kind of who he is, But that's, like you said, guys will accept that if you're just being you. And I think that's really important. It's something that Mike Macdonald really believes in. And one of the things that stands out, again, his similarities with Pete is he knows who he is and how he has to run an organization and what the messaging needs to be. Mike's really big on messaging. He's got his slogans, principles are set in stone, methods are adjustable, chasing edges, 12 as one, go through things, not around things, make it right. He's got all these stuff. And it's not just catchphrases. He didn't put them all in Chat GPT and say, how do you run a building, right? These are genuine lived experiences from him that if you ask him, what does make it right mean? He'll explain it. What does chasing edges mean? He'll explain it. Why is 12 as one important? He'll explain it. So I think that's huge. I talked to him last year in a one-on-one, and he was telling me about how he runs, his stuff with the players. And he's like, look, man, I got to play the best players because the players know who the other good players are.
That's right.
So if I'm not playing these guys for whatever reason, the politics of football, draft picks, guys who are making X amount of dollars, he's like, he didn't say this explicitly, but it's implied. Yo, man, they're going to call me out. If I'm putting such and such out here because he's a first-round pick, but he sucks, Devin Witherspoon's not going to let me live that down, Not to make everything about Spoon, but I think one last thing on this, a good example of this is Kobe Bryant playing last year. He got advocated for. Julian Love was like, we should be playing Kobe. Like, no knock to the other guys, but I see how Kobe works. I see what he does in practice. I listen to him. We should be playing him. What do you know? They put Kobe out there week 7 and he takes Rayshawn Jacobs' job. Like it's not just because Julian hated Rayshawn. It was, I know who the good players are, coach. We should play him. Now you don't let the players run the team per se, but Mike's aware of that type of stuff. And I think that matters.
Does he create room for players to give that feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he knows they have a leadership council, I believe. I don't know how many guys are on it, maybe 7 or 8. But that's important as well, just to know that the players listen to the other players. And man, somebody asked him about Richard Sherman the other day, because Sherman was at practice. He's been there a few times.
Right.
And one of the things Mike said in his answer was, shoot, he played, I didn't. He knows more football than I do.
Damn.
From a player perspective, at least I'm paraphrasing, but just that right there, the humility to understand, yeah, I'm the head coach. Yeah, I call the plays. Yeah, I diagram the stuff, yada, yada. I've had the best defense in the league. But that's still Richard Sherman over there. He still knows ball in a way that I will never understand. And I think that's really important in today's game, particularly as we get into, and I'm part of this, you're part of this, we're all part of this ecosystem of like opining on the game. For people who didn't play it at that level, I don't think that players are any better of analysts of it than we are, per se. You look at the NFL top 100 list, it sucks every year, and that's a player-driven list, right? But there's still something about the lived experience of the guys going out there that you have to be tapped into. And I think one of the things I like about Mike the most is that he understands, like, hey, man, yes, on paper, this guy's technique may not be great or whatever, but Jay Reed sees something in this guy when he's next to him in the trenches, and I need to listen to that. Does that mean I play him because Jay Reed says so? No, but I need to hear it out. And maybe my way of doing it is not the right way, and I need to listen to a guy like Jay Reed or whoever. And that's, man, I can't stress how important that is. You will lose your locker room if you're just my way or the highway. This is how it works. I guarantee you will. You will.
I love reading historical biographies, and some of the best ones are about war, right? I mean, that is a situation, thank God, I've never had to be a part of, hope I never have to be a part of, but that millions and millions of people have had to be a part of, and it reveals everything, right? That's like a common theme from these stories, and the great generals listen to their soldiers. And that's something that seems to be consistent between Pete and Mike, even though it's done in different ways, is that as generals, they're listening to the feedback their soldiers are giving them from the trenches and adjusting accordingly. And that I think resonates. And y'all listen to the show. No, I don't put a ton of stock into the preseason, but there are things that you're looking for. And I saw some of those things in this last game against the Chiefs, right? There's all the qualifications there. It's not like every starter is playing. Coaches are not opening up their playbooks, right? There's guys playing next to guys that they're not going to play next to in the regular season. But you want to see some schematic cohesiveness. You want to see some personality cohesiveness. Beginning of that game, I got a little excited. Tell me what the players were feeling after that game, even though it's preseason.
Yeah, I think the important thing on offense, at least, I'll start with that side of the ball, is proof of concept. It's one thing to draw it up. It's one thing to go practice it against your own teammates, but go out there and make it look like how it looks in practice. That is really important as well. You can freak some stuff and improv where you need to and just go out there and be a football player. But first, you just need to, this is the messaging. Here's how it practices. All right, how does that look in a game? And I thought all that was consistent, what they're telling us, what they're showing us in practice, and then what they did in the game. And I think that's important for all the guys. One of the people I was really interested in talking to post-game on Friday night was Eric Saubert, who you wouldn't think, like, why you talk to Eric? Well, Eric's played in this scheme before. I think he's 31 years old. He's played for Clint Kubiak before with the Broncos. I think he might have played for Gary. But I know he's played in the system before. He played for Shanahan. And so what he said on Friday, and I used it in my story, was guys need to see it. You just got to see it, and he knows that from lived experience. This is, again, listening to somebody who's been through it. And I thought that was really important. And I think also on defense, there's something just reassuring about the attitude, for as much as like Pete kind of got he's an old fart, the game's passed him by knock, which I can understand. I was part of that for a little bit. But really, Mike Macdonald's trying to play Pete ball. He's trying to get under center, use a fullback, run it outside zone, and on defense, smack people. Like, that's it. Protect the ball on offense. play action deep shots. Like it's very much, you can read some of the quotes now about how they're trying to run them, and you could easily, Daryl Bevell said this in 2012. Like I could probably dig it up and find it for you. But the reason that the Exiles want to play that way, because there's an attitude that comes with that. No matter whether he touches the ball ever, there's an attitude when Robbie Oots comes on the field now. Because you're a fullback, right? Like,
that's right.
That's it.
That's right.
You know he's out there for violence, just like Mike Robb was back in the day. Like it makes a lot of sense. And so on the same thing on defense, there's just an attitude that you have to play with. And I remember to kind of bridge the two eras together, one of the things that guys who were older than Bobby the year that he was a rookie, when they say, oh, why'd you believe in this guy? This second round pick from Utah State, coming in and leading your defense. There was just something about the way Bobby looked in his eyes and told him the play calls. And it sounds so simple, but they just believed in him. There was just something, there was a way about him. And they were kind of telling you like, okay, we kind of tested him, and he passed. And they're doing that with Mike Macdonald's defense too. If there's a certain attitude and character you have to excel in his defense, and if you don't have it, you'll stick out like a fucking sore thumb, And I think whether indirectly or not, that's why a lot of fans I think are out on like Reek Woolen. For instance, they just kind of don't think he fits that, which I can see if you don't know Reek that well, but there's just a way you can look in some of these guys' eyes and see, okay, he's one of us, or he's not. And they needed the preseason games to kind of show it. And I think even in a small sample, you saw it at the end of the drive, right? Where you saw Kobe Bryant knock Juju Smith-Schuster short of the sticks on 3rd and 4. And then Julian Love going an attitude play for sure. I don't even know if that was where he was supposed to be. I think he just saw Reek was in trouble, needed help, and then went and helped him out and was fired up about it. And then they go for it on 4th down, and then Julian Love goes in there in air, meets the running back. This is the year 7. I think Julian Love, he's gotten paid, but he's in the second game of the preseason and going in there laying it all on the line because it's 4th and 1, right? And Mike Macdonald spoke about that after. He's like, there's pride about these guys. And there is. That's how you're supposed to, that's the attitude of the defense, particularly the secondary. And sometimes you just need the preseason to reinforce that. And I think that drive in particular really reinforced that. And I think the first drive for the offense was proof of concept that they needed. So yeah, it's the preseason, like you said, all the qualifiers, but there was a lot of good in there schematically and both from a kind of an attitude standpoint.
Am I getting out over my skis a little bit to think that there's a chance that Grey Zabel is a transformative player for this franchise?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Because I do think while you can get a good guard in any round of the draft, I think me and John Snyder, one of the few things we agree on is that there is something special about the guys who are good enough usually to go in that first round. Like there is something usually about them. The reason
not a lot of guards get drafted in the first round.
Yeah, there's just something about them. I think safety is very similar. Like, yeah, you can probably get a safety in the 2nd or 3rd round, but the guys who belong in the first round, there is something about them. I remember the first time I saw Kyle Hamilton at Notre Dame, he went like across the field and made some interception, I think, against like Florida State. It kept being looped on SportsCenter. And I remember thinking, I should learn more about that guy because he looks very good. And what do you know? He ends up being very good. Like sometimes it's just very obvious. I felt the same way about Brian Branch when I saw him at Bama. I was like, that guy he kind of just looks like a first rounder. Now he wasn't, but I thought he was. I thought the Seahawks should have taken him. They took Spoon instead. Very similar, archetype of a player there. So no, I think Gray just has something about him. I talked to some of the guys who were involved with scouting him. I like some of their pro personnel guys, and obviously John Snyder. And it sounds very similar. Let me bridge another era here. When there's a book that The Athletic has about the top 100 players in NFL history. Each writer had to do an entry or two about guys who are on the team they cover. I had to do the Big Walt entry, even though Big Walt precedes me. So the angle I took with that story was talking to Randy Mueller and guys who were involved in scouting Big Walt, because that was a very big draft, obviously. Paul Allen had just bought the team, yada, yada, yada. And one of the things that Randy talked about, Randy Mueller, who drafted Walt, was that's what it looks like. Because Big Walt was he was in like a timeshare at Florida State too. He was a JC transfer. Like it was not a no-brainer to take him like it was Orlando Pace in that same draft, for instance. Like it was very obvious Orlando Pace was going to be a top 5 pick. it wasn't as obvious Big Wall.
I think Orlando Pace was a Heisman finalist as an offensive lineman.
Yeah, like it was a lot more clear that Orlando was going to be very good. That was a no-brainer. Whereas Big Wall, it took some risk, it took some more convincing. They traded up, I believe, to get Big Wall because they had Sean Springs with their original pick, I think. So, like, it was a big deal that Randy took him. And Randy, when he's telling me about it, he's like, I didn't really know what I didn't know. I just watched him, and I was like, that's what a left tackle looks like. And with Gray, it seems very similar, where it's just like, that's what a guard looks like. That's what a good old lineman looks like. Yes, he's from North Dakota State. Yeah, he kicked ass at the Senior Bowl, which is not like totally applicable to guys playing well in the NFL. But it was just, he's what it looks like. You know, I just can't get that out of my mind. I think writing the Big Walt chapter for the book, for a separate book, not mine, was like informative for me in that way. When I watch offensive linemen, that's kind of now what I'm looking for. Like, is that what it looks like? Is that what it's supposed to look like? And there's some schematic stuff that goes along with that. But Gray, early on, checks that box. It reminds me of Abe Lucas's preseason as well, when he's pancaking guys in his first game. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it looks like. That's what the backside of wide zone looks like for the right tackle. That's what it is. And Gray gives me that same feeling early on.
Yeah, man. It is remarkable to see an offensive lineman jump off the screen, right? Because usually for most of us, and I've gotten better at watching offensive line play, but I'm never going to bullshit about being an expert on that, largely because we don't really know what their assignments are. So usually I'm letting the color analyst on the replay draw up what a lineman did well or poorly that led to the success or failure of a play. On that opening drive, I didn't need that.
Nope.
I didn't need that. That one play, you know what play I'm talking about, where he engages the guy right in front of him, dismisses him, and a chief kind of strafes across him. And while he's still one hand engaged with that first defender, hurdles that second chief coming around, jumps over him while engaged with another blocker, lets go of that dude, lets those two run into each other, and then creams the dude behind on the second level, right? On one of those Charbonnet runs. And it was just like, that's not something that every guard is capable of. And so, we were fortunate enough to have Walt on our show, and he talked about how important it is to see that from the other guys on the line, because then it frees you up to know that if you just do your job, this play is going to be successful, because that guy next to me is whipping ass.
Yeah, there's a lot of problem solving involved with playing O-line. I think a lot of my conversations with like Ray Roberts have opened my eyes to that. Brandon Thorne as well, who does the Trench Warfare newsletter. He does a lot of O-line and D-line analysis. Like, there is a lot of problem solving involved. Like, yeah, you'll have like your assignment, but the fronts move. They move. Guys do, like, you may have someone in front of you, got to hurdle over. Just solve the problem. Abe is really good at that. I think that his tape against Bosa in week 2 of his rookie year was really eye-opening for Pete. That's when Pete came out and was like, oh, we should throw the ball because both of our rookie tackles can block. They just played Bosa. They were fine. The Seahawks lost that game, but if you remember, that's when Pete got on the radio after watching the film and was like, we need to let Geno spin this thing. And then they did for the rest of the year. But part of it wasn't just a faith in Geno. Pete always had that. He needed to make sure his rookie tackles wouldn't get Geno killed. Well, you go against Bosa. Bosa's so goddamn strong. And Abe was just losing at first and then anchoring back up and figuring it out and was like, oh, okay. 72 is going to be okay. They had that feeling about Charles, obviously, top 10 pick. But it was like Abe was a little bit more of the question, later round pick, and then it was like, oh, okay. He's fine. And that was one of the things, is problem solving. All linemen have to problem solve quite a bit there without getting holding calls. And Gray was able to do that. I thought Jalen Sundell was able to do that too. Dude. He jumped off the page or off the screen, I should say, watching the film back. Like, I'm not totally sold on this being like a super elite offense. Yeah, I got to see it a little bit more because I've been fooled before by early game results, particularly by Shane Waldron. But man, the early returns are really, really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like an encouraging development. I mean, this, everyone listening knows this. I have my reservations about the direction of the offense. but I'm also willing to adjust my opinion when presented with new information. And the new information I got on Friday was very encouraging and is keeping me with an open mind that this Kubiak shit might work. And if it does, I do have a lot of faith in the development of the Mike Macdonald defense. And this team that lost the division on the 5th tiebreaker last year might be a little bit closer to contending than I and some other people were giving them credit for a month or two ago.
Yeah, I think on offense, what'll really be important is for them to not veer from that attitude. And those Pete years that went kind of south with Russ and everything, that's really what Pete's holdup was. Pete doesn't care. He's a lot more flexible on offense than you would think, at least than I would think. I learned that about Pete over the years. He really just wants his team to have a certain attitude about them. And it is easier to have the attitude you want his teams to have when you are running the ball well. You can have it in other ways, like the Bengals have an attitude about them on offense, right? And they're not this running juggernaut. Their attitude is Burrow. He is their attitude. And that works, right? They put up a bunch of points last year. But Pete just wants his team to have an attitude. And I bring that up to say that I think the attitude is right, and we'll just see how that goes when it's tested. They're going to have some games. They even had some games in the Marshawn era. They just didn't run the pill that well. They had to win some of those Niners games like 19-13, shit like that. Like it wasn't always pretty, 12-7 or whatever. They had some really ugly games, 6-6. I think that wasn't a Marshawn game.
Yeah, the Luke Kuechly, Cam Newton era Panthers always brought that out in them.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. They won one
this
of those
game
games,
might be like 12-10.
Yeah. I think Jermaine Kearse caught a game winner in a game where it was like 13-9 was the final score or something to that effect. Yeah, so. But it was the attitude. Like Pete, I don't remember his press conference from that Panthers game, but I'm sure he came out and was like, "Yeah, that's how we want to play," or something like that. Because it's ugly sometimes, and when it's ugly, sometimes you can get into bad habits. You can stop believing in the philosophy. But I think there's just an attitude to it. One of the things that really stood out when I was covering the team in the early years was talking to guys who had, whether they came from like the 49ers or something else, just guys who had played against those Marshawn teams, and how it was a psychological thing. You just knew, like, okay, I'm gonna be in the cold tub later, after we play the Seahawks. Right. Like there was just an attitude about. There was some DB I was talking to once that was telling me like, they was like, yo, when I played those teams, I just knew I was gonna need extra treatment. I had to make sure my chin strap was right every snap. Like there was just before you even snapped the ball, there was a psychological chess match going on, and I think that's what this team is aspiring to be. Whether they get to it, I'm not sure, but I do think the more I cover football, the more I become a meathead in that way. It's just like,
yeah, man.
If you know that I'm gonna hurt you before I hurt you, that's it.
Listen,
that's advantage me.
Dad football is having a moment right now, and it's honestly pretty fucking rad to see. And what you're talking about, like, you need to be functioning mentally at the highest level to have any modicum of success in the NFL. And so when you are distracting guys by making them think about their chin strap before a play, that adds up. Maybe it's 0.5% of an edge on that play, but that gets compounded over 120 plays by 11 guys on the other side, 22 guys on the other side. That adds up. And I mean, you remember there was that stretch there where teams were like, they lost like 18 straight games after playing the Seahawks, right? Like whether they won or lost against the Seahawks for a year straight, they lost their next game. And at some point, that's not a coincidence. And it's cool to hear that you use the perfect word, that is, this team isn't there yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Maybe they never get there. But the fact that that's what they're aspiring to be is really fun as a fan.
And I think the Niners, I don't know the number. The Niners are on a similar streak, I believe they were. Like this iteration of the Niners, Kyle Shanahan's team, my former colleague, I can't remember his name right now, but now he's on his own site, but he used to cover the Niners for us. He would always point out, the teams that, he would tweet it every week. He's like, teams that play the Niners are this, or excuse me, after they're this in their next game, to what you're speaking to. I forget what the number is. Oh, David Lombardi, I think, is who my colleague who I'm thinking of. Like the Niners are on that same type of thing. At least they were up until last year. And look at what the scheme is. It's the same thing. Like when you play a team with a fullback, 21 personnel, you feel a certain type of way, you know? I think another player anecdote that stands out to me is Ryan Neal's first start. I think it was against the Vikings. I want to say 2020. At that time, the Vikings were using a fullback. I want to say a CJ Ham. Might still be their fullback, actually. But I remember Ryan was like, yeah, I had to get a treatment regimen after that. Like playing strong safety against a team with a fullback, that's just different. Now, Ryan had also never been a starter, so his body wasn't calloused in that way. But
but he'd been playing football a long time.
Right. It was like his third year in the league or something. But playing a team with a fullback, and because when you're a strong safety in a cover 3 scheme, sometimes you are the take-on guy for the fullback, right? So that's important. So he was like, yeah, I learned I had to get my body right. Like here's, acupuncture, massages, whatever, after he played a team with a fullback. And so I when they drafted Robbie Oots, I was like, okay, Kubiak, okay, Mike Macdonald, okay, John, I'm seeing the vision now. Like, it's one thing to just pick up a guy and convert him an undrafted free agency. Like, no, we'll use a draft pick. That's how much we care about our identity in that way. I think Marshawn Lynch's legacy, it should be a lot of things, but one of them, I truly think he's one of the greatest orators in sports history. Like his quote where over and over and over and over again, they don't want that. Like obviously the best quote in there is run through a motherfucker face, but the instructive one is they don't want that. They don't. Mm-hmm. Not every defense has 11 guys who want that. I can guarantee you every defense doesn't. So if your offensive mindset is find the guy who don't want that and run it at him, oh, that's my type of ball. It wasn't always my type of ball. Now that's my type of ball. Right. The more I've researched it, that's my find the guy on the defense that don't want that and run it at him.
Right. Now you start to understand why all these coaches they seem so stuck in the past and curmudgeonly when they talk about the importance of running the football. Because look, I'm an analytics guy. I know you have respect for the metric analysis of the game, but I think one of the things that gets missed when you see a lot of folks talk about, well, your EPA is so much higher on passing plays than it is on running plays. Why are you not just building the airplane out of the higher EPA play? It's because analytics can't capture what you're talking about. It can't capture the additional thoughts, the distracting thoughts that go into a defensive player's mind when they know, I'm just going to get hit harder today.
Yeah,
I'm going to get hit harder today than I get hit on the other days. And that affects their thinking and it affects their approach. And there is real value in that.
Yeah, and I think to even extend it past the run game, one of the attributes, like now, I'm not a scout, but if I was to, when I look at quarterbacks that a team should potentially draft, mostly the Seahawks, obviously, toughness is like one of the things that needs to be, that's one of my non-negotiables, right? Like,
dude, this is why Stafford is like minted to me for this reason.
He's tough as hell. Yeah, like you have to be tough. That's why I respected Geno. He was tough as hell. Like I'll learn that about Sam. So far, like Sam doesn't seem not tough. I just need to see it up closer, more often, more consistently. But that's one of my non-negotiables. I can get by if you're kind of slow, even if you don't have like great arm strength or whatever, bad footwork. I can work with some of the other stuff. If I don't think you're tough, there's no shot in hell I would draft you. It doesn't matter what round either. Not first, second, third, seventh. I just don't care because you can't be soft and play in the NFL. And I guess no guy is soft. That's the wrong word, but there's just a certain level of toughness that I need from you.
That's right. It's a different standard at that level.
Yeah. It just really is, and like that's important. And I think Mike Macdonald is looking for a certain type of toughness. It's not all meatheads. It's just, yes, there's a way about you. And there's some guys that when I say their names, you can just see it. Like there's just a toughness about Kobe Bryant where you're like, that's a Mike Macdonald safety. I don't really have to explain it. If you watch football and watch Kobe, you're like, yep, he fits. Grey Zabel fits. Abe Lucas fits. Like there's just guy, Ernest Jones fits. There's just guys who are like, okay, you're a Mike Macdonald type of guy. And it's not just because you're just a football meathead, me Tarzan, you Jane guy. It's just like you just have a toughness about you. And I love that. That's what I would do. John says when they're in the draft, they want smart, tough, reliable. And that's really cliche. And I get it. Every team's looking for that. But the toughness part, me and John are on that. I don't even care if you're that smart, to be honest. Football IQ is not that high. I just need you to be tough as hell especially if you play certain positions, I can work with you could be a not smart as hell corner, but boy, if you're willing to set that edge when they run outside zone to you, I'll work with you. I'll teach you how to stay on top, even if you run a 4-6. Like, we can figure it out. Michael Jackson is a great example of that. By the way, that's why he went to the Panthers, played a bunch of snaps, and got paid by them. Not because Mike runs a 4-2, not because even the best cover guy. Boy, Mike Jackson is tough as hell. He is tough as hell.
He adjusts a culture, right? And the Panthers were a team in desperate need of that. Now, look, this is last question for you because you've been so generous with your time. This is the part of the year where 32 fan bases are telling themselves, "This is how this goes right." This is that time of year where you can talk yourself into a lot of things on the positive side. My question for you is, how does this go wrong this season?
Oh, it's just everything we just talked about. If they don't have the right attitude, that's it. If they get into bad habits.
You think they got the talent? It's about the attitude.
Yeah, I think the scheme can take you pretty far if your talent is not like super duper far. I mean, like, you'll be a good regular season team, which is obviously the first step. I think of like some of those Goff Rams teams. Their O-lines were very good, but they weren't like overwhelming. I would say like Whitworth was obviously very good, and some other good guys. Their right tackle was good. But it's not like they were what the current Eagles are per se. But the scheme was just so goddamn hard to stop. And I'm not even like a Goff guy. I don't think he's that good. But I was there in 2018, 2017. He was putting up 30 burgers and 40 burgers, not just on the Seahawks, but on a lot of teams. And that was scheme driven. And then their defense was, once they got the defense right, they went and won a Super Bowl. And their defense was nails in 2018, went to the Super Bowl. I've watched Shanahan use this scheme to get two different quarterbacks to the Super Bowl. Quarterbacks, one of them whom I think is not very good at all, Jimmy G.
That's right.
So I think that this was the right scheme to choose because you can, not the floor just being high, like, you can get to the Super Bowl with a version of wide zone play action and get you a strong arm quarterback who throws on time. Like, it's very doable to get where you want to be. I think if it goes wrong, it's if they don't have that foundation of the run game hit the way it's supposed to, and just that attitude about them, that nastiness. I think that's what they need, and you have to maintain it. It's gonna sound crazy, even if it's not working. Like, you're gonna have those games where it's like Ken had 9 carries for 27 yards, Zach had 9 carries for 24 yards, and we lost 13-10. It's like, that does not mean run the air raid the next week. Like, you just gotta stick with it. That's how the run game works. I'm sounding like Pete now, but you do. And I do think that if it goes wrong on defense, I don't think it will. I think the floor for the defense is really high. But if it goes wrong, I've become one of these guys when I analyze defense, like, it's very important you have a blue chip guy or two. And then the other thing that's important is, how good is your 11th dude? Like, because if he's not that good, it can fall apart pretty fucking fast.
Well, because the great play callers will just spam that dude. I mean, that's what Shanahan and McVay did so successfully towards the end of the Pete Carroll era, is they just knew they can't fucking cover sail routes. So we're just going to run 20 of them, right? Like, yeah, it's not brilliant. Belichick, same thing, right? He was so good at taking away your best option and making you beat him with your worst option. And at this level, that's what the great coaches and play callers do. And so I think that speaks to what you're saying, that, the cliche is you're only as strong as your weakest link. I think it's one of those cliches that's true in the NFL.
I particularly believe it on defense. And we've seen that. Like, you could have 10 good guys, and then, bless his heart, if your 11th guy is unfortunately Thurl Simon in the Super Bowl, well, here comes Tom Brady, right? Like, that was the problem in that game when Jeremy Lane broke his arm or leg, whatever he broke. His backup gave up 2 touchdowns, right, including the go ahead.
Broke his arm on an interception. He was balling out that game. And Cliff Averill,
Yeah, that hurts. But yeah, like, that's important. We've seen that. Even in 2019, their defense was like not even that bad. But the Packers figured out, well, number 28, Ugo, can't cover, and neither can number 21, who was Trey Flowers. Well, there you go, ball game. You got 9 good guys. You got 2 liabilities. It's over. And it doesn't have to be at the in the secondary as well. You mentioned what Shanahan does. You know what he did in that wild card game? He kept running dig routes right where Cody Barton was supposed to be.
That's
you
right.
know, and I forget who the other linebacker was at the time, but like that's where they were just supposed to be, and it didn't work. And Ayuk looked like Jerry Rice, you know, in that game, running the same route over and over and over again. I just heard Reek talk about this on Sherm's pod. Like if you don't have, if your 11th guy or your 10th and 11th guys are not NFL players, eventually that will get exposed, whether it's you got a Darrell Taylor who's not a good run defender, a Cody Barton who doesn't stuff to run well, a Tedrick Thompson who doesn't play the ball in the air, whoever. Not to pick on these guys, but Seahawks fans, I'm bringing up traumatic memories because you've seen it. You've seen those guys be the weak link on a otherwise pretty satisfactory defense, and it just not only do you lose a game, but you're like, oh my God, we look terrible today because of insert guy or two here. So I think if things go wrong this year, it'll probably be because like, oh man, they're picking on Tyrese Knight in coverage, or they're picking on Nick Eamon-Warry because he's a rookie. You know, like that's not to. It sucks for those guys, but if you're the 10th or 11th dude and you're not a dude, a good OC will figure that out, and it'll be a long day for you. And just hope that doesn't happen in like the playoffs or something.
Right. Yeah, that's right, man. Listen, Mike, I gotta say, doing 250 episodes of this show, this one's way up there, man. This is one of my favorite conversations about football that I've ever had, and it means the world to me that you gave us your time during your moment, because this book right here, I'm telling you guys, I'm not doing this because Mike's my friend. I'm not doing this because he was gracious enough to come on the show. I'm telling you that this book is going to be an artifact in the history of Seattle sports, because it pulls the curtain back in the way that we've all wanted them to do it. So one more time, the franchise, Seattle Seahawks, curated history of the Legion of Boom era, Michael-Shawn Dugar. You did it, man. You did it. Thank you. Thank you for writing the book.
Kind words.
Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for coming on the show. One more time, tell people where they can get the book and where they can follow more of your stuff this season.
Follow me at Mike Dugar on X, Twitter, whatever. And get the books everywhere they're sold, man. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. It should be up on the Kindle apps too for my e-readers. My wife's a big e-reader, so I know how big a deal that is for a lot of people. Should be available there as well. If it's not, let me know. I'll yell at somebody at Triumph and make sure they got that bug fixed. The only thing that is not available is just the audio yet. I've learned now that's a whole different department. You got to hire somebody to come do it. Yeah, audio editing, totally different bag. It just doesn't come that way. So that one I still want to work. I'm still working on. But everywhere else, books are sold. Your local bookstore should be. And again, I'll be at Elliott Bay Books on August 25th at 7 p.m. up on Cap Hill, talking about the book, signing books. I'll be there all night if it takes. Come on through, bring your book. I'll sign it. I can't wait to meet everybody. And thank you again for giving me the time.
All right, y'all. Amazing conversation. I'm telling you, it was not just lip service for the show. This book is incredible. Make sure you get it. Make sure you read it. It's just going to give you an appreciation of that time-stamped era in Seahawks football, which is my favorite time ever being a sports fan. And Mike was the guy to write this. So chalk one up for Team Mike on that one. Barwin, I know you're just giggling about it. But, man, this book is the real deal. So make sure you get that. And as always, you can find Mike and I on social media as well. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jackson Bevins. That's Jacson. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on both at Mike Barwin, and the show itself is at Cigar Thoughts on Twitter and at CigarThoughtsNFL.com on Blue Sky. You can catch full video episodes on our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts and find the rest of our socials at CigarThoughtsNFL.com. As mentioned previously, this episode is brought to you by Balvenie Premium Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of their lineup. We are thrilled to have them on board as a sponsor of the show. One of the great things about a great Scotch is how well it plays with a good cigar. So, once again, we do have our own special release of cigars, which you see me smoking during the show. You can purchase them at a terrific price as a listener. The release of these Cigar Thoughts stogies has been successful enough for us to continue offering them for the low price of $149. That's right, it's just $149 for a bundle of 10. And like I get it, you can find $2 cigars out there. 15 can seem like a lot for one cigar, but I'm telling you, these are $40 cigars on the open market when they are banded and branded by the company that makes them, and you can feel it when you smoke it. I mean, they've just become my go-to. I think they would be even if they weren't mine. So, like I've told you before, we have partnered with one of the most prestigious cigar manufacturers in the world to release these official Cigar Thoughts cigars, which you can order directly from cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Just follow the link on the show page to get these easy-to-smoke stogies rolled with 13-year aged premium Dominican tobacco leaf, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. We'll send you the details directly. The cigars are going to come with a Boveda humidification pack and a Mylar storage bag to make sure they stay fresh whether you have a humidor or not. And of course, you can listen to this show at fieldgoals.com and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. Thank you to all of y'all listening for your continued support of this show. We know you've only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it's an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing this show on social media and with your friends, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We will be back soon, but in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.